A Light in the Darkness Chapter 41, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. After I gave the one-armed man Antiochus some more sword technique tips and set him off, I realized that with the disciples of the sect having gotten settled in after the last couple of days, it was time for me to begin giving out some very important information. Digging into my chi stores, I synchronized with the sect's master system and had my voice projected throughout the sect. All disciples come to the front of the sect master's palace. I will be teaching a skill that you won't need to redeem in the library, as well as educating you all about the dangers and food of your cultivation. My voice echoed, and Elesmer who was beside me, raised an eyebrow. You didn't mention you were going to be doing any lessons today? She asked, and I nodded as I truly didn't make any mention of such lessons. I will not follow the same path of my forefathers and hide what the warp is to the disciples. I said, thinking about how the Horus heresy may have gone if the Primarchs were made aware of the dangerous demons and evil gods within the warp itself. I am going to try to summon a Slainish demon. They will be the physically weakest and will prove a good lesson on controlling your mind to all the disciples, I said as I walked into the sect master's building, and after I got some timber, I quickly made a cross and got some railroad-like spikes ready. Then I got into my newly remade demon kiln, that was its own room and was the size of half a basketball court, and made with arrayed cover tiles that would weaken and prevent any demons or warp entities from fleeing the demon kiln. You have fun with that. Tangling with a Slainish demonette is only done at times of great need for the Eldari people. We prefer to avoid those of she who thirsts ilk. Elismir muttered quickly, leaving my demon kiln as though she had no problem taking some time to help me slaughter and devour other warp entities. She absolutely abhorred when anything to do with Slainish came close to my feeding portal. Now, normally, I avoided the Chaos God's demons like the literal plague they were, but with Khorne already sending his foot soldiers to test me, it seems my chaos-devouring nature isn't enough to hide me from Tzeentch's eyes, or the Fate Weaver is instead formulating a path by watching those around me. So might as well say fuck you, demon gods, and begin munching on their armies directly if they were already going to fuck with me. With a breath of effort, I engaged my heavenly demon swallowing art and the matching physique it gave me. Thus, a gaping tear in reality formed in front of me, and instead of the kaleidoscopic tunnel of infinite light spinning in front of me with the warp's denizens rushing over, feeling an entryway to the material world. This time, the portal was predominantly purple-tinged as I purposefully opened a portal to Slainish's realm of pleasure and hedonism. While I allowed the weakest of probing warp entities to fly through the portal and be quickly swallowed down my gullet as I either squashed them with the pure power of my chi into paste or I physically pasted them with a couple punches to the demons that were stunned and being tortured by the room's thousands of arrays designed to torture and tear apart spiritual entities. But finally, I felt a bigger fish metaphorically checking out my portal, and then with a snarl I punched into the portal, and even as I felt my arm overload with chaotic essence being taken directly from the warp from my Choas-devouring physique, I still managed to grab whatever was on the other side by its throat, and then with a sound that was honestly like loudly shredding paper I pulled the demon into the material world by its neck. Briefly taking in the monstrous demon. Yeah, it was a demonette, a lightly purple-skinned humanoid figure about the same height as me. It had a breastplate covering its large female breast and left its male breast plain to see while also covering its genitals with a skirt of sorts. Of course, with it being a Slainish demon, the thing had crab-like claw hands that were already wrenching forward to rip me apart, but I slapped the demon across the face with stone-pulverizing strength, making it reel in surprise at the clearly human-shaped being slapping it like I was a space marine in full power armor. Actually, you don't need these hands, I muttered, and then I reached forward and grabbed the Slainish demonette by its nipple chains and used it as leverage to slam it against the array-covered ground, horribly burning the demon at the close-up interactions with the array and making it scream in agony as its immortal soul was being wrenched apart by the array's magnet-like system that were fighting to pull the demon's soul to each array with differing amounts of strength. Even as the demonette seemingly violently orgasmed at the complete agony it was currently in, I still cut off its crab-like hands so I could more easily haul the screaming demon by its hair and slam it into the crucifix made out of wood and some talismans I slapped onto it. You know, a couple months ago I couldn't even imagine doing this to a humanoid figure, I muttered conversationally as I hammered in the blessed nails through the elbows of the demonette, so even with how flexible it was, it couldn't get the momentum to wrench its limbs off the railroad spike as I hammered it onto said pole. Then, just to seal its fate, I superheated the blessed railroad spikes and twisted them so they curled over the wood above the demon's arms so it could never just pull the limb off. This demon was going to be a long-term example. I was going to literally stake this bitch outside my sect, and we can see how masochistic this thing truly was after being baked by the sect's sun and the effect the sect's outputting spiritual energy would have on a demon. Hell, one day I may just make a demon farm for my adorable disciples to render down for materials. After likewise staking the demon's legs in several places to the crucifix and setting a couple more seals/talismans and even carving an array onto the demon's surprisingly bare stomach that would tell me the demon's location at all times, should I desire to mentally connect to that seal, I decided that this was enough to secure the demon. Harder, Daddy. The demon cried as I finished up carving the runes for its tracker into its stomach, making me cringe at the demon, who I could feel trying to eke its way into my psyche with its mental warp fuckery. But joke's on the demon, I literally eat those negative spiritual energies, so I had no idea what illusion it was trying to push into my head. Oh, shut up, damn it. You aren't even a noise marine, so stop trying to make my ears bleed. I said, slapping the demon again, this time even harder, so it knocked out several teeth. With the demon suitably silenced for the moment, I then picked up the large, crucified form and, just to be an ass, I made sure to smash the demon's head into the top of every door's entryway, and I could practically feel Ellesmere's hysterical giggles at the sight through the sect's monitoring system she was watching from. But my fun and games came to an end as I walked out of the sect master's building with the demon crucifix, and lo and behold, the 30-odd disciples all broke out into gasps seeing whatever they were seeing that was nailed to the crucifix. All of you shut up and listen. I will be teaching you all a mental clearing mantra, and this beast on this crucifix will be explained in due time. I said, seeing some of the disciples' eyes fogging over due to the demonette's influence. But my words cleared their mind as I began outputting a Buddhist essence that made the demon beside me scream in agony as its skin began to be flaked away just being in my holy presence with the mantra I was humming with my chi resonating in the air. Finally, after going over the mantra 5 times to make sure, it was all but ingrained in their heads, and were all softly reciting the mantra along with me. I actually had to shield the demon from the combined might of 30+ hymns about to disperse as all their combined mantras were almost as strong as mine solo. The funny thing about cultivators actually coming together in one matching technique was that the more cultivators there were, the stronger the technique grew exponentially, so even with them all merely being in the elementary realm, they still had the combined power of a peak nascent realm cultivator with the hymn. That's enough. I called out, awakening the disciples from the deep meditation they were in, and more than one disciple shuddered at seeing the true form of the demonette as they had cleared away the mental pollution being around the demon had infected them with. Despite them being cultivators that didn't make them Grey Knights, they were very much still vulnerable to the chaos's influence, so instead of hiding the information about demons I was very clearly going to explain how they were monsters and that making any sort of deal with them in which that you didn't control their very soul after holding their true name in your pocket was foolish in the extreme. No, not even foolish. It was suicidal. Look upon this monster. This is a demon of the warp. They will corrupt you with promises of immortality, power, and countless other lies. But with cultivation, all of those promises are already in your damned grasp, if you are willing to just take them from the demons themselves. I roared as I paced around the demonette, who shivered under my eyes that were lit up with young fire.